like any other year. Celebrations, resolutions, a fresh start.
But by March, 2020 turned into one of the most difficult years in history.
This is a global pandemic.
But WBTV has been on your side through it all, working to keep you healthy.
Free masks will be given out.
Most hospital systems that are offering testing recommend that you call first.
I speak with a doctor with Atrium Health about this process and what it could mean for the Charlotte area.
Advocating for you.
There's a lot of people like me who are needing the money. We live paycheck to paycheck.
And simply guiding you through everyday life.
Whoa!
Oh,
You're
wow.
watching On Your Side in 2020, a WBTV news special.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Maureen O'Boyle.
And I'm Jamie Bull. It has been a long, difficult year. You know, when this whole pandemic began back in March, we didn't think we'd still be social distancing here in December.
No, we didn't, but here we are with just about a week left in 2020. Normally, this is a time where we look back and celebrate our memories. This year is a little different.
Yeah, while we do have much to be thankful for and much to celebrate, we want to take tonight to look at how far we have come in 2020.
We've persevered, we've lifted up those in need, we've had difficult conversations, and we've come together as a community to fight the virus.
Certainly a lot to be proud of, and our reporters have been on the ground all year telling the stories, keeping you up to date. So tonight, we're bringing you their accounts of what 2020 meant to them.
Tonight, we want to highlight all those moments when WBTV was on your side in 2020. The big story this year was, of course, the coronavirus. From the start of the pandemic, when we were all just starting to learn about COVID, to now, when we're getting ready for vaccines. WBTV's On Your Side health reporter, Christy O'Connor, has helped us better understand risks and best practices.
It was really overwhelming when we were reporting numbers for the first week or two that the pandemic really started, because it felt like things were changing every hour. And it was a lot to keep up with in the newsroom. I think it really resonated with me just how big this story was. So being on your side, of course, is the WBTV brand, but I really do think that we lived up to it. I think it was our job to make sure that they were coming to us because we could at least show them that we were bringing them trustworthy information that they could rely on. One of the most important stories that touched me, not just during the pandemic, but probably throughout my career, was a story I did on a little boy who was originally from Charleston, but he was living in Charlotte. He was battling cancer. His name is Landon Hartman.
Since we got diagnosed, I don't let him kiss me anymore. And it's hard, but you gotta do what you gotta do.
And this was very early on in the pandemic when at the time health officials were urging people not to wear masks because they were flying off the shelves and there were not enough for healthcare workers. Landon's life relied on that mask.
And I've been at work trying to order a new one since like the beginning, mid-February. And I can't get my hands on one. Money's tight, and I can't go on eBay and spend $150 on a mask because somebody was being selfish.
And that story really hit home for me because I felt like it really explained to people why it was important not to get a mask when you were told not to. But I think that one was a really important one because lives were depending on it.
Sometimes you've needed help navigating this new but temporary life. State regulations and mandates have changed. Traditions and celebrations have looked very different. The way we keep in touch with loved ones has changed. That's why our QC Life team keeps guiding you through it.
It's been really important, I think, for us here at WBTV to help everyone at home navigate daily life during the pandemic. We live on your side around here. We take that really seriously. The QC Life team really took that to heart. All right, so here's how you take them off. When you take them off, only touch the straps. We've spent a lot of time talking to therapists about how do we do a day that is so different than our normal work day? How do we navigate holidays when they are virtual? So we've really had good conversations with some therapists.
You know, this Halloween is going to be a little bit different than it has been in the past. Obviously, the children might be a little bit disappointed. What do you do with that feeling of disappointment?
It is to be expected, to be quite honest with you. As a father, I've already started the conversation with my daughter, giving her the opportunity to share her thoughts and feelings, being able to normalize those disappointments.
The other thing we know that you all have wanted to do was find things to occupy your time, but find things to occupy your time that you could do safely. So one of the teams that we leaned on was our friends Tim and Matt over at Charlotte is Creative.
Yeah, we're excited about this. This is called Movies at Victoria Yards. It's a series that's featuring a free outdoor movie screening of Back to the Future 3 tonight.
They have found so many wonderful things to do outdoors, but Tim and Matt also gave us tons of stuff to do inside our homes. We wanted to be your friend through a very difficult time, so we really hope we've done that. We've really hoped we've maybe lightened the mood a little bit on some of these really difficult days.
They most certainly have. And one thing that got many of us through the tough days, our faith. It's something WBTV's David Wisnett brought to QC Life. He did weekly segments on religious services around the area.
I know you've been looking at some of the churches that are offering virtual services, all of the denominations that are doing it.
Yeah, it really has turned into quite a big thing. My wife and I, the last 2 Sundays, we've been on the couch with the tablet in front of us, watching my church service here at First Baptist in Salisbury.
Well, the idea to showcase church services on the QC Morning Show actually came from our news director, from Kim Saxon. And when I was asked if I would like to be a part of that, I didn't hesitate for a minute. I just thought it would be great. It sounded like a lot of fun. For me, faith is the most important part of my life, and so I spend a lot of time at church.
We'll start out in Charlotte, right in the heart of Center City, of course, First Presbyterian Church, right there at Trade and Church Street.
That series really meant a lot to me because it was fun to be able to sort of dip into what other churches were doing. They discovered that through something like Facebook Live or YouTube or any other sort of online avenue, they could have, on some days, they could have more people actually watching online than they would have sitting in a sanctuary or in a temple taking part in the service. And I think that it also was something for maybe people who didn't go to church, who didn't feel like they had a church home. This gave them a way to shop around, if you will. Everyone who sent me an email or a message and they said, hey, would you mention our church? I did, because why not? It was great. I really hope that for the viewers, it helped them to, to see that the work of the church didn't stop because there was a pandemic, because they could watch a church service and they could see that things were still happening, that lives were still being reached, that comfort was still being offered, that hope was being offered. That's powerful. And I really relied on that quite a lot during those first few weeks, first few months, and it really meant a lot to me, and I hope it meant something to the viewers.
Welcome back to On Your Side in 2020, a WBTV News Special. Much of this year, we have been sort of building the plane as we fly it, learning about COVID-19 as we go. But it's also left a lot of people vulnerable. Many people were struggling to get unemployment checks. Others simply couldn't get the information they needed about outbreaks to stay safe. Part of our job is to advocate for you, and it's what WBTV Investigates has been doing.
Well, 2020 has been a crazy year. It's been full of difficulties and challenges that many of us have never faced before. There have been so many people who filed for unemployment this year, more than ever before. The system at the state level was really overwhelmed, and we tried to tell those people's stories.
There's a lot of people like me who are needing the money. I mean, we live paycheck to paycheck.
I've never been through a process like this. And at this point, it's like I have a family to take care of.
Spoken to probably 7 or 8 people who will say that it's just a matter of time, it's an oversight on their end, and even still, nothing has happened.
The people who were not able to get through, not able to get answers, not able to get their claims taken care of for weeks, for months, for half the year.
I'm out of work, there's no money, I'm stressed, so that causes more issues with my younger one. So it's almost like a tornado within a hurricane.
When we did reach out to the Division of Employment Security and we did start getting results for these people, many of them were so thankful that they finally had a result. Even in the cases where it wasn't the result they were looking for, there's still many more of you out there who we still need to try and help. It shows just how big the problem is, but one by one, we're trying to tackle those issues as they come. It was always good to see an outcome like that happen because people were really struggling for money, laid off, some people in their family also out of a job, not sure where their next paycheck was going to come from, how they were going to pay their bills, their rent. But one thing that we've done a whole lot more of this year is cover our local government. There have been so many decisions at the local level that impact viewers, whether it's schools opening, not opening, going virtual, what some of the mask requirements are, stores that are required to close. One story that we did that shed a lot of light on how the local government is actually operating during this pandemic. Many people have blamed local politicians, specifically Mecklenburg County commissioners, for some of the requirements that made businesses close early on in the pandemic. And through our investigation, we found out that it was actually a group of policymakers that were calling these shots, meeting in secret and not allowing us to view their meetings.
We have to be accountable to the people, and folks who are not elected don't have to answer. So this is not about, ego-based thing. To me, it's about, as a citizen, what voice do I have in decisions that are being made about my life?
They were the ones who are often making these decisions with just the signature of a single elected member. So we really were able to find out for our viewers that during an emergency, a pandemic like this, you actually have a whole different set of rules about how government operates.
And you have navigated them well, David. You've probably felt like 2020 was all about surviving the pandemic, but it was also a time for an uncomfortable but important conversation about racism in America. After the death of George Floyd, we saw protests across the country and in Charlotte. They were powerful and passionate outcries for justice, an end to police brutality and systemic racism. It was important for us not only to cover those protests, but also dive deeper into the systemic racism woven into our community.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. No racism, no peace.
I think the protests were an important aspect of 2020, just for the simple fact that I think it was a moment in time where everybody took the opportunity to stop. The world stopped to take a look at an injustice done to people in different communities, to Black people in different communities.
Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
Taylor, my photojournalist at that time, and myself, we are morning shows, so the passion and the anger and the frustration that was unfolding the night before, we got the aftermath in the day after. You could see the vestiges of a movement, that was very impassioned, left behind. You saw murals, you saw the wreckage, the businesses that had been affected, the windows that have been broken, the boarded up, things.
I stand with the protesters for the injustice, George Floyd that was murdered. However, I do not stand with the lawlessness.
Damaging businesses like this, that's not going to get you nowhere.
I think we covered every possible aspect and angle of the protest that we could. You have to do your due diligence as journalists, as a station, to cover all of that.
I think the moment that still resonates with me was one of the big marches that we saw here in the city of Charlotte through Myers Park. That is a historically white community, very affluent, a lot of money in that particular community.
George Floyd! George Floyd!
And to see a large crowd of people coming together and joining for a common cause and saying we support each other, we stand together. I think our coverage of the protest in 2020 showed that we were on the side of the viewers because we were able to share different viewpoints.
I'm going to protest probably until I can't protest anymore.
When we are going to the march, I'm looking around and I'm looking at the president at the NAACP and I'm like, wow, I can't believe I did this.
And let other people in the community know how their counterparts down the road might think and facilitate conversations that weren't being had prior to the death of George Floyd.
We'd like to go into those traditionally all-white establishments that used to not allow Blacks and teach them about this system that's behind the veil that we all can't see. that we are supporting unknowingly.
I think just facilitating such a big conversation helped to show people that if we work together, we can make this country a better place.
So in the year 2020, we had another community conversation when it comes to systemic racism, because everybody was talking about that.
No racist, no peace. No racist, no peace.
We brought our veteran reporter, Steve Crump, to the table to talk about what he has seen throughout the years.
I think that going back to what we saw more specifically here in Charlotte, you had, going back in the 1990s, a couple of very unfortunate episodes involving Charlotte-Mecklenburg police officers killing unarmed African Americans.
We also talked to a mother, an African American mother, about the thoughts that she has when her black son goes out in the streets.
I think I'm gonna probably worry about him until the day I die.
My name's Latasha Ross. I'm a news producer at WBTV. I helped co-produce our community conversation, Facing and Erasing Systemic Racism. Watching those mothers, listening to their stories, listening to their pain, I identified with that because I have nephews, I have brothers, I have a father, and I would hate to have to experience that type of pain.
They have their own voice. They have their own ideas and opinions, and they have the right to be able to express those things.
And we chose to include portions of those stories in that community conversation because, sadly, this is something that so many mothers are feeling and fearing and facing.
I believe reporting on systemic racism and protests, I think that proves that we at WBTV, that we are unafraid to have that uncomfortable conversation. Since people depend on WBTV to be on their side, well, we want to be able to lead that conversation. We want to be able to connect people who can make things better, because in order to make things better, it will take all of us to make that happen.
Welcome back to On Your Side in 2020, a WBTV special. I'm Jamie Ball.
And I'm Maureen O'Boyle. It is great to have you here with us in the studio tonight. One of the biggest and perhaps most frustrating hurdles for your family this year was learning from home. Back in March, students switched to virtual learning. Since then, every school district has had a different approach.
Yeah, it's been tough on parents trying to balance work while having the kids also at home, right? Sharing computers, internet, all those things. It's been hard on teachers as well, who are trying to learn how to teach virtually. And it certainly highlighted the digital divide within our community. It's why we've dedicated so much time to keeping you up to date on what's going on, but also helping you make learning from home a little bit easier.
Covering education this year was so crucially important because the backbone of our communities are schools, and it all comes back to schools. And what happens in schools really trickles across our community.
North Carolina families in school districts say they're ready to hear the governor's decision on how to reopen schools.
I've heard from so many families who are fearful on both sides, whether their kid is supposed to be going back in person into a classroom for learning.
There's no way Emma can step foot into a classroom at this point.
Or if their child is staying home and doing fully remote. That's why we do what we do. We make sure that we're listening to everybody and giving everybody a fair chance, and we're putting it out there to make sure that we can do our part and hopefully make things better.
Hey, this is Mr. Russell's Classroom, and I have two guests with me. The idea for Mr. Russell's Classroom happened when we found out that remote learning was going to be around for a while. So on Mondays, we had lessons in math, history, and English. Welcome to this special edition of Mr. Russell's Classroom. We are here on a field trip. We're at a polling location because this is a time where millions of people are voting. Then on Wednesdays, we had engaging science experiments.
We're going to put some water in our first glass there. It's all right if you make a mess, just don't do it on mom's dining room table. Okay, there you go. You see that? A big splash, and look at that. It's nothing spectacular, but I gotta make it sound spectacular.
And then on Fridays, we had quizzes to test the knowledge of students and see if they were paying attention to what we were doing. The temperature of liquid nitrogen is A, -300 degrees Fahrenheit, B, minus 321 degree Fahrenheit, C, minus 375 degree Fahrenheit, or D, none of the above? What's your answer? The bottom line is that we wanted to let our viewers know, let the parents and students know that we were on their side and we were there to help them as they navigated this new way of teaching and learning.
A story I reported on in 2020 that I will never forget, and it still resonates with me, is a story I did with a family, a single mother and her 4 kids. She is doing the best she can to make ends meet, but she cannot afford internet.
I will be switching my schedule to later in the evening because virtual learning is an all-day process. So I got to be here to monitor them.
And so the whole family is relying on a free hotspot from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Public Library. But 4 kids, each of them with their own devices, trying to learn, all sharing one hotspot, it's difficult. And this was really a snapshot of what life was like for a lot of families in Charlotte this year. And with this family, we were able to get internet paid for this house.
My coach asked me if I did my homework, I can finally say yes.
And then we still had people wanting to help, so we were able to get school supplies for the kids. And I will never forget the looks on the faces of those kids. It was like it was Christmas morning.
I got headphones that are my favorite color.
I'm happy that it's still good people out there, you know. I'm actually shocked, really, that it is, but I'm thankful for those people. I really am. I really appreciate you guys.
There are a lot of families like this one struggling in a similar way with remote learning. But I hope that through this reporting, it kind of started to shed a light on the economic disparities and the digital divide in Charlotte.
2020 has also been a year of rising violence in our city. More than 100 homicides, many of them shootings. It's tough to report on all of those, but they are important stories to tell for our entire community.
My name is Taylor Simpson. I'm a morning photojournalist here at WBTV. And so since I work the morning shift, I usually cover a lot of breaking news, anything that's breaking in the overnight hours and into the morning. Of the homicides that have happened, I probably have been to most of them. Most of the people that I've seen usually come out to the same age as me or around my age, or even teenagers or younger. So going out to those scenes is really sad. So for us to get aware to the community to actually show that there is this violence and we need to come together and actually help people and actually give them a way to relieve that anger without killing. This is crucial that we have these conversations with our viewers and with the community so we can learn a good way to help those people and help those families. There's one scene this year that I remember, which was the Beatties Forest shooting where they were celebrating Juneteenth.
Whoever did this hurt a lot of people. A lot of people.
It's a miracle that more people weren't tragically killed in this incident. When you see the total disregard and recklessness of human life.
It was the biggest crime scene I've seen. There ended up being 4 people passed away.
By losing a child, I'll say again, it's like diving in the ocean without an oxygen tank, or, just diving without any air and hoping you'll hit the bottom. And this is him with his aunt.
The Beatties Forest scene was one I couldn't help but feel tears swelling up in my eyes, just knowing that these 4 families were changed forever. The community was changed forever.
We have to do better. We have to do better, guys.
Hearing that mother's cry is the worst thing you can hear. It makes you want to put down your camera, not even look, not even want to be there because how sad this is.
Those stories that we, cover, we try to be on your side because our job as a reporter is to represent each community, to tell the stories of each community. That story of the Beatties Forest shooting really shows that we want answers just as much as others do. Check with police saying, hey, it's been 6 months since that shooting. next week. It's important for us to say, hey, where are you guys at? When are you releasing the next video? Have more people come forward.
We need to do something to build our community up, you know, walk away from the situation. If you get an argument, like walk away, drive away, do whatever you need to do. But violence is definitely not the answer.
Wise words from our young man in the field there, and he has seen a lot. In 2020, for many of us, it was just getting through and relying on your community. Oftentimes, it was a business that really needed its local shoppers to survive. The pandemic's effect on small businesses is something our Paige Peroso focused on.
2020 has been a wild year to be a journalist. It's some of the biggest stories that I might cover in my entire career. I've talked to a lot of the businesses, these small businesses who have struggled more than they ever had.
When this whole thing started back in March, and, you know, in my mind, I was like, oh, you know, this will be a month and we'll be back to normal.
No one had a game plan for a global pandemic. No one knew what to expect. And each day has just been a roller coaster if they're waiting for, you know, different restrictions and rules that they have to follow from the state government, from federal government. And then they also have the differences of how customers are approaching this. You know, some are not wearing masks, some will, and just kind of balancing that. It's been a huge challenge.
90% of my day is, folks, I gotta ask you to put a mask on. Like, it's turned more into babysitting.
I spoke with a lot of restaurant owners, someone who personally likes to support local businesses and local restaurants. It's been hard to hear them say, hey, we don't know if we're going to last this year, or to cover stories of where these small businesses you know, have had to close.
We're going to see the effects of this for years.
It's no one's business plan to be closed for 7 months.
It's not just my income, it's not the businesses, it's the 15 employees that I have.
I think it's one of those things, it's the American dream to be able to start your own business and to have profits and success there. So to see something like this close those places down, it's just been heartbreaking to see.
It really has, and it's those stories highlighting our community that also makes us want to highlight those that build it up. It's something we've been focusing on during On Your Side Tonight. This year, our Greg Simpson has been using his camera to tell us the inspiring stories of our neighbors, and in his signature style, he's reflecting on some of those pieces.
My name's Gregory Simpson. I'm a segment producer with the On Your Side Tonight team at WBTV.
It's great, of course, for many of us to live in a city where we have so many nice things.
One of the first stories I worked on this year was with Watchmen of the Street. It's a group that goes out into homeless communities and tent camps and tries to help the people that are living in these situations and try to get them the things they need to survive.
So I've been out here for around about 4 or 5 years. I see shooting, stabbing, robbing. That's about it. I try not to see it because I'll be back here.
These tents get destroyed really easy, and a lot of people are finding themselves on the streets without even a tent to stay in right now. We know that there's going to be people that are homeless. We understand that people go through hard times, but as a community and as a nation, why shouldn't we reach out to those that are in need, that don't have the shelter and the things that we have?
A little peace of mind. I got my cats. I got my babies with me. Back here, it give you a peace of mind. I sit here and talk to the Lord and talk to my cats.
One of the stories I worked on in the fall was with Loaves and Fishes. They've started a new COVID-related food delivery service for people in need. And I think we were able to tell their story in a way that we could show what the volunteers are doing and get a feel for how it affects the community.
Donation?
Oh yeah.
So there's always food available. There's always people who need it. The trouble is always, how do you connect the two? That's the problem. How do you get the food from where it is to the folks who need it? And that's where I feel like that's where my place comes in.
These are for all the like cleaning stuff?
First off, I come to the facility and pick up my assignments.
So this family, it didn't say what size diapers, so they actually have a baby kit.
The staff here load the van, and then I take off and just go from place to place. Knowing that they're able to provide a small glimmer of hope in the form of a food box to a neighbor in need, I think that compassion pays off. They get a big emotional paycheck. That's the only kind of paycheck they get, but it's a big emotional paycheck that they get by helping out.
Yeah, Greg's camera has opened a lot of eyes for us this year.
He's incredible.
He really is.
Welcome back to On Your Side in 2020, a WBTV News special. No doubt about it, this year has been tough. Sometimes it can be really hard to stay positive. It makes every little nugget of good news we can share that much more important. WBTV has been highlighting the heroes in our community throughout 2020, and we've also been relying on each other to keep our own newsroom in good spirits.
We all needed to find positivity in 2020, and it was there. It was hard to see sometimes, but it was there. A key part to staying positive, I thought, was highlighting
helpers and heroes in our community. WBTV here, we decided to do a Helpers and Heroes every Friday, a whole special. It was pretty awesome. You're not about to watch a typical newscast with coronavirus blurbs. WBTV is proud to be taking this next hour to show you humanity. Giving people hope, that's what it's all about. Helpers and heroes and highlighting those that do good things for others. It is kindness, and kindness is ultimately what has gotten us through.
It's very touching, and I know that we all care about, just not about me, but about one another.
Even had one gentleman crying, so it was touching. I mean, this has been well worth it.
It's so special, and I am so grateful.
Helpers and Heroes showed that we were on your side because it's the real community. It's stories about you. It's stories about the people that make us, us.
This year, WBTV viewers helped raise $2 million for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital through the Dream Home giveaway. And you didn't just raise the money. You did it in record time, buying up 20,000 tickets in just 7 days. I am so humbled to be a part of this team and this community that in the midst of a pandemic and everything else that has happened in 2020 continues to open up their hearts to support the children and families treated at St. Jude to make sure they never receive a bill for travel, treatment, housing, or food. During our Dream Home giveaway coverage, we got to share some of the stories of families here in our backyard whose children have courageously fought cancer. Children like Sydney Aquilino and John Hagen. And we heard firsthand the impact of St. Jude from their families.
The support that the hospital staff, like Child Life and nurses.
Thank you so much for helping me and making me stronger and just carrying it.
John would not be sitting next to me if we didn't have St. Jude.
You believe that?
I believe that. His case was so difficult, he would not be with us today.
Your support in 2020 has continued to make miracles happen for families like the Hagens and the Aquilinos, and we couldn't do it without you. WBTV is always proud to be on your side, but this is one of those times when we can all be on each other's side, and I hope you'll join us in 2021 for the next Dream Home giveaway to raise even more money for the children and families of St. Jude.
My name is Ray Falkenberry, and I work in the editing department here at WBTV. I also run E&G behind me. Last year, 2019, I worked on the 70th anniversary special here. I came across all kinds of different stories, promos, commercials, and a lot of behind-the-scenes things.
News people live on the scene eliminate the time and distance between you and the news.
Some of it I've never seen before. I thought, well, if I've never seen some of this stuff, others might have not seen this stuff too, so why not share it with everybody here?
On the local front, Metrolina has another bank robbery. A new professional sport comes to the Carolinas.
Every week, people email me back, either with stories that they've held on to, that they start telling me about, or, apparently I've made people dance sometimes, working from home.
Well, 2020 marked the 50th anniversary of Carolina Camera. And for folks who aren't familiar with Carolina Camera, it's this feature that ran on WBTV News that explored all the Carolinas, North and South Carolina.
The greatest experience of my life was being able to put just average, everyday people on TV, give them that moment in the spotlight.
So I wanted to do this anniversary special, 50 years it's been since Carolina Camera first debuted on WBTV. I was talking to our news director about this 50th anniversary special, and somehow we just got the idea, well, maybe we need to bring back Carolina Camera. Carolina Camera is coming back. This is the video archives room here at WBTV News, and over the course of the years, thousands of news stories have been shot on videotape and stored on these video cassettes. We'll go down to the coast, we'll go to the mountains, we'll go to the Piedmont, we'll go wherever. There are just so many compelling stories out there that interest people, that fascinate people. And
thanks for watching. We'll see you in 2021.